All right, since I started this channel, there is one martial art that has repeatedly come up in the comment section. It is a very controversial martial art, and that martial art is Aikido by popular demand. So stay tuned. I'm going to give my thoughts on it, and they may surprise you. In fact, I'm almost sure they're going to surprise you.
Pow, pow, inside fighting, yeah, dangerous martial arts. Pow, pow, ooh, ah.
It's interesting because when I made the video, Wing Chun, the most hated martial art online, a bunch of people commented, "Hey, Wing Chun, hold my beer because Aikido's coming." I did not paraphrase that properly. Anyway, there was some kind of witty comment about Aikido being more hated than Wing Chun. And arguably that is true. Aikido is a very hated martial art. Now I want to jump into the reasons why it's hated, and then I also want to jump into the things that I really like about it. You know what? Switch that. I'm going to talk about what I like about it first, and then what I hate about it, and then where I see the fixes to that. So, Aikido. Here's the things I love about Aikido. Aikido, in the very nature of how they train, in the very nature of the martial art, has some incredible principles. If you look at the philosophy of Aikido, there's a lot of fantastic footwork, a lot of great angling, a lot of good points of controls. In other words, they use wrist control, elbow control. They have a very good understanding of human anatomy. And those are all fantastic, fantastic things. I also love the idea of being able to control somebody without having to strike them. Now, we have to jump into the history of Aikido here a little bit. It's created by Morihei Ueshiba, who has a background in jiu-jitsu, which Japanese jiu-jitsu, samurai-style jiu-jitsu, which stemmed off into numerous different martial arts. You look at like Aikijitsu or Aikijujitsu has a lot more aggression to it than Aikido. That would be the more violent form of Aikido. Now you look at Aikido in itself, the philosophy there is one that is very peaceful. It is not a fighting style. It is a true self-defense style. And someone put this really beautifully. If you look at the term Aikido itself, it's harmonious energy. I'm probably not translating that properly, but it means something along those lines. Something along the lines of a negotiation of energy, not a fight, right? And so that's what Aikido is in its very idea and its very fundamental philosophy. It's instead of approaching you and hitting you back, I'm going to accept your energy. I'm going to divert your energy. I'm not going to face it with force. And I'm going to allow it to continue and have a negotiation with that energy so that we don't need to hurt each other to come to a peaceful conclusion. That through these interactions, I can get back to a point where I can get you to comply without hurting you. Now, I just want to jump into one problem right off the bat with this. Right off the bat, Aikido suffers from what I like to call a obsession with ideology over reality. And we see this with a lot of things. When you have an idea of something, but you ignore reality-based circumstances because this idea or this ideology takes precedent over reality, then you end up with something that is fantasy. It does not work in the real world. Now, I'm going to explain why. There's an interesting fracture that happened in Aikido, I find, after World War II. If you look at the history of Aikido, a lot of people talk about pre-World War II Aikido and post-World War II Aikido. And perhaps that's because World War II was such a violent war, such a trauma to Japan, that people like Morihei Ueshiba or people who were affected at that time and started spreading Aikido might have started changing it because of the elements of Buddhism, Zen Buddhism that were implemented there, and which is why there is no true competition or true fights in Aikido, which probably there were not competitions prior, because if you look at the quotes from Morihei Ueshiba, he explicitly talks against competition, because when you have peace, there is no competition, there is no confrontation. And so that is, in the core, the essence of Aikido. And so again, amazing philosophy, amazing ideas, amazing understanding of body mechanics. You look at some of the work that they do controlling each other. And again, those principles of energy, of diversion of energy, of deflecting, the footwork, the angling, all incredible. But if it's not tested, if it's not applied, then it's not going to actually be applicable in a real world situation. Pressure testing, and I'll repeat this in every video, is one of the most fundamentally important things in a martial art. Now, this right away branches off into something else. There's someone called Kenji Tomiki, who was a student of Morihei Ueshiba, who believed that there should be a sport aspect to Aikido. And if you want to see Aikido implemented in a reality-based way, Tomiki Aikido actually has competitions. So he founded his own system. Interestingly enough, they wanted him to call it something completely different. They felt like his philosophy of competition was so at odds with the fundamental idea of what Aikido is, that it should not be named Aikido. And that shows the true rift in Aikido, the true fracture between the majority of people who train it, who have this idea that there's always a peaceful solution to anything, that you can negotiate with energy, and that if you train these movements, you don't actually have to pressure test them. Again, it comes back to what I said about ninjutsu, where you cannot idolize the founder of the system. You cannot believe that the word of the founder of the system is going to determine if something is applicable or not. You have to test it for yourself. Your body is your body. It is not their body. So if you do not go out and test yourself in the real world, you won't know if the techniques you're doing are working or not. And in fact, you won't ever get them to a place where they can work, because you need live resistance for that to happen, which is exactly what Tomiki Aikido is. Tomiki Aikido is the ultimate expression, in my opinion, of Aikido in a modern day way that allows you to actually pressure test it. And they have a really unique competition form. Their competition it looks like a mix of judo, but then they also take a knife and they do some competitions with the knife. One of my students, a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, went in and competed in a Tomiki competition. He has a background in Aikido and amazing martial artist. And so it was awesome to see him demonstrate that and actually go compete in that. And he got silver, I believe. So congratulations to Jamie. My first brown belt student in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that was awesome to see, and he's kicking butt in Jiu-Jitsu also. Now I want to give, again here, something very, very important, because I just brought up Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a huge wrist locker. Jiu-Jitsu for me is a huge, I mean, I'm not a massive guy. I'm not an exceptionally powerful guy. I'm strong for my size, but there's guys out there who are like 240 pounds who come into a Jiu-Jitsu class, and I'm trying to arm bar them, and they're literally just holding their arm like this. And sure, there's other things I can go to. There's chokes. There's, you know, I could do a bicep crush on some of these people if I'm not getting their arm out. But in the end of the day, the smaller the joint, the least resistance you will face with it. And also the harder it is to control said joint when someone attacks it. Meaning when I heel hook you, when I do a foot lock on you, or when I wrist lock you, those are very good points of control to move your entire body. Aikido is the art of wrist locking. End of story. Plain and simple. The fact that they don't test it, the fact that they don't go out and you know, kind of make it applicable in the real world, other than Tomiki Aikido, doesn't mean that if you're a jiu-jitsu guy and you go train this, that you're not going to be able to steal a lot of that stuff and be able to use it in your own style when you go to the gym. Now, I will say this. I do like wrist locking. I do like ankle locks. I get in a lot of trouble when I'm sparring with bigger guys and I'm wrist locking them. They get super pissed off. They don't like tapping to it and they end up getting injured. It is the kind of move that comes on very fast. It's also amazing for compliance in a self-defense situation. I'm a huge fan of wrist locks. People say you cannot pull them off in a real-life situation. They're absolutely wrong. Again, this comes from a lack of understanding of the application of how to get it. And a lot of the, I guess, the stuff in Filipino martial arts that I've done allowed me to tap hands a lot so that I get kind of sticky with the hands, and then you follow the hands, you get the wrist lock. It's a very similar idea to Aikido. Again, in practice, against a live resisting opponent, you will become efficient at these things. So, here's my final say on Aikido. If you want to train the art because you love the ideology, you love the idea behind it, you love the body mechanics, and you do want a better understanding of anatomy, how to control people, then do traditional Aikido. I think it's fantastic for that. Do I think it's going to be applicable in a street self-defense situation? I think it'll help you. I think it's better than not doing anything at all. But I don't think it's the most efficient system for self-defense. Again, I think it's an ideology. It's going to give you a lot more than just being able to go fight on the street. It's going to give you a philosophy to follow. Now, if you want to take your Aikido and you want to make it effective, unfortunately, Tomiki Aikido never took off. It didn't become popular in the way that other martial arts did. But you have sports like Judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like Sambo, which allow you to go out and take elements of Aikido and start testing it in a live grappling situation. Even if you don't like striking, because Aikido hates strikes. They don't believe that's the solution to a confrontation. You don't want to meet force with force. So grappling, any type of grappling school gives you the opportunity to do that. I think that's the ultimate solution. Even if you're a peaceful person, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu by nature is a peaceful martial art, other than the fact that you're trying to choke each other out and break each other's bones. But you tap. You're not hitting each other. So if you're training Aikido, I think it's super important that you go out and pressure test it. I don't think that's a shock to anyone. But I do hope I introduce some people to Tomiki Aikido and the history behind it. which I think is a fascinating martial art, fascinating evolution of Aikido. And again, I respect very much the idea that we can be peaceful. Unfortunately, that's not how it translates to reality a lot of the time. So hopefully you like this quick video on Aikido. And that's all I gotta say. I think it has a lot of positives to it. So it's an interesting martial art. Subscribe to my channel. Goodbye.